Derek Huang watched his breath fog up the observation window as the transport shuttle made its final approach to Harmony 7. Behind him, a small crate rattled and thumped. Something inside made an annoyed huffing sound. "I know, buddy," Derek said without turning around. "Almost there." The shuttle pilot, a nervous Quiven named Riss, kept glancing back at the crate. His compound eyes reflected genuine concern. "Mr. Huang, are you certain that container will hold? The creature has been very active." Derek smiled. "Brock doesn't like being cooped up. He'll be fine once we get to our quarters." "Brock," Riss repeated, his mandibles clicking. Such a gentle name for something that required 3 diplomatic waivers to bring aboard a research station. The massive research station grew larger in the viewport. Harmony 7 was a neutral zone where different species came together to share scientific knowledge. Humans were still newcomers to this arrangement. Most species had been part of the galactic community for thousands of years. Humanity had joined barely 2 decades ago. The docking procedure took another 20 minutes. When the airlock finally opened, Derek grabbed the crate's handle and stepped into the station. A welcoming committee waited in the bay. At the front stood Commander Greth, a Tormik who stood nearly 8 feet tall. His species descended from apex predators, and Greth carried himself with the confidence of someone who had never faced a real threat. "Welcome to Harmony 7, Greth said. His voice rumbled like distant thunder. "We are pleased to host our first human researcher. Your species has quite the reputation." Derek shook the massive paw that Greth extended. "Thank you, Commander. I'm excited to begin my work here." Greth's eyes drifted to the crate. "And this is your emotional support animal?" He said the words slowly, as if tasting something unfamiliar and slightly amusing. "We received the documentation, but I must admit the concept is strange to us. Tormik do not require emotional support. Different species, different needs," Derek replied diplomatically. A Draal scientist stepped forward. Her scales were a deep green color, and she moved with the grace of Earth's extinct velociraptors. "I am Vissix. I will be your liaison during your stay. I find Earth biology fascinating. May I see the creature?" Derek hesitated. "Maybe wait until we get to my quarters?" "Brock isn't great with crowds when he's been traveling." Another Tormik guard laughed. "Crowds? There are only 6 of us." "Is the tiny creature frightened?" The crate thumped hard. Something inside made a low growling sound that seemed far too aggressive for something that fit in a container Derek could carry with one hand. Greth waved a dismissive paw. "Vissix, please show our guest to his assigned quarters. Mr. Huang, we have a formal dinner scheduled for tonight. You can introduce your companion then, under controlled circumstances." The quarters were modest but comfortable. As soon as Derek set the crate down and opened it, Brock emerged like a small furry missile. The honey badger immediately began exploring every corner of the room, sniffing and marking territory. He was about 3 feet long, with distinctive black and white coloring that ran from his head down his back. Vissix watched from a safe distance near the door. "It is smaller than I expected. What purpose does such a creature serve on your death world?" "Brock is a honey badger," Derek explained, pulling out food and water bowls. "They're one of the most fearless predators on Earth." "Fearless?" Vissix tilted her head. "But it is so small. Surely larger predators would hunt it?" Derek laughed. "They try. Usually doesn't end well for them. Honey badgers have incredibly tough skin, powerful jaws, and absolutely no sense of self-preservation. They've been documented attacking lions, buffalo, even poisonous snakes. Nothing scares them." Vissix looked skeptical. "I find that difficult to believe. Every creature has natural predators, not honey badgers. Their only real enemy is humans, and even then, we mostly just avoid them." Derek sat on his bed while Brock continued his inspection. "See, most animals on Earth operate on a cost-benefit analysis. Is this fight worth the injury? Will I get enough food to justify the risk? Brock's species skips that calculation entirely. They just attack." "That seems evolutionarily disadvantageous," Vissix observed. "You'd think so, but it works. When every predator learns that attacking you means guaranteed injury, they stop attacking. Honey badgers can eat whatever they want, go wherever they want, because nothing wants to deal with them." Brock had found a small vent near the floor. He stuck his nose into it and made snuffling sounds. "Is he trying to escape?" Vissix asked nervously. "Nah, just curious. He can fit through surprisingly small spaces when he wants to." Derek pulled out his datapad and showed Vissix several videos from Earth. "Here, This is what I mean about fearless. The videos showed honey badgers raiding beehives while being stung hundreds of times, fighting off multiple hyenas, and in one memorable clip, attacking the front tire of a moving vehicle. Vissix's eyes widened. It attacked a transport? Why? Who knows? The vehicle was there. Brock's species doesn't really do logic the way we do. They operate on pure instinct and rage. And you chose this creature as a companion? Derek scratched Brock behind the ears. The honey badger leaned into the touch, making happy grunting sounds. I rescued him when he was a cub. His mother was killed by poachers. We bonded. He's actually very sweet with me. But with others, let's just say it's best if people don't try to pet him without permission. That evening, Derek attended the formal dinner with Brock on a reinforced leash. The dining hall had viewing screens set up so staff throughout the station could watch. Word had spread about the human and his unusual companion. The Tormik guards found the whole thing entertaining. They made jokes about humans needing emotional support and questioned how such a small creature could be dangerous. One guard, a younger Tormik named Dren, laughed openly. That is what humans bring to the galaxy? We Tormik face real predators in our youth as a rite of passage. This looks like it would make a suitable pet for our younglings. Brock's ears flattened against his head. He made a low growling sound. Derek tightened his grip on the leash. I wouldn't recommend treating him like a pet. Honey badgers don't have a domestication instinct. Perhaps a demonstration, Greth suggested. Show us what makes your Earth fauna so special. Before Derek could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. The screen switched from showing the dinner to displaying a priority alert. A ship had docked at the far end of the station. Greth's expression darkened as he read the identification codes. Krell mercenaries, he growled. They claimed they needed emergency repairs. I granted them permission to dock. Vissix leaned close to Derek. The Krell are dangerous. They hire themselves out as soldiers and enforcers. Very aggressive species. On the screen, a group of heavily armed Krell disembarked from their ship. They were reptilian, covered in natural armor plating with faces that looked designed for biting. Their leader, a scarred veteran named Brask, surveyed the docking bay with cold calculation. Derek watched the way they moved, the way they positioned themselves. Something felt wrong. He had spent years studying predator behavior on Earth, and these Krell were exhibiting classic pre-hunt patterns. Commander Greth, Derek said quietly, I think you should increase security protocols. Unnecessary, Greth replied. The Krell may be aggressive, but even they respect neutral zone regulations. On the screen, Brask was reviewing data about the station's inhabitants. When footage of Derek and Brock appeared, the Krell leader laughed. The sound was harsh and mocking. A human and his pet, Brask said to his second in command. Mark them as low priority. They will not interfere with our plans. Derek felt Brock tense beside him. The honey badger was staring at the screen at the image of the Krell. His lips pulled back, revealing impressive teeth. Easy, boy, Derek whispered. But Brock's instincts were already engaged. He had identified a threat. And honey badgers had only one response to threats. Derek had a sinking feeling that the Krell were about to learn a very painful lesson about underestimating Earth species. 3 days into his stay, Derek had established a comfortable routine. Each morning he worked in the botanical section, studying alien plant samples. Vissix joined him most days, fascinated by his insights into evolutionary adaptations. The Droll scientist had become a genuine friend. Brock, meanwhile, had become something of a legend for all the wrong reasons. The incident in the recreation area started simply enough. Derek had taken Brock for his daily walk through the station's common spaces. The honey badger needed exercise and stimulation, otherwise he got destructive. They were passing through a garden area when Brock spotted something interesting through a transparent wall. Before Derek could react, Brock yanked the leash hard enough to pull it free from Derek's grip. The honey badger took off at a surprising speed for something with such short legs. Brock, stop! Derek chased after him, but the honey badger had already found a ventilation grate. With practiced ease, Brock squeezed through the narrow opening and disappeared into the station's infrastructure. For the next 2 hours, Harmony 7 experienced what the staff would later call the Badger Incident. Brock appeared randomly throughout the station, always in places he shouldn't be. He emerged from a wall panel in the Drow laboratories, causing 3 scientists to abandon their experiments and flee. He popped out of a ceiling vent in the Tormik barracks, staring down at sleeping guards with unsettling intensity. The Quiven workers were particularly distressed. Their species had evolved as prey animals, and their instincts screamed warnings about the small predator that appeared and disappeared like a ghost. Derek finally cornered Brock in the commissary, using a trail of his favorite treats. The honey badger emerged from under a food preparation unit, covered in dust and looking entirely pleased with himself. "You can't do that, buddy," Derek said, clipping the leash back on. "These people already think we're weird." Greth arrived moments later accompanied by 2 guards. "Mr. Huang, your creature has caused significant disruption. Perhaps it should remain confined to your quarters." "He needs exercise and mental stimulation," Derek explained. "Honey badgers get anxious when confined too long. An anxious Brock is much worse than an exploring Brock. Then you must control it better." "Him," Derek corrected, "and I'll work on it." But the real trouble started the next day. A junior Torment guard named Dren decided to prove himself. He had been part of the group mocking Derek and Brock at the formal dinner. His pride was hurt by the idea that anyone found the small earth creature intimidating. Derek was in his quarters when he heard shouting in the corridor. He opened the door to find Dren attempting to grab Brock, who was on his walk leash attached to a wall hook outside. "What are you doing?" Derek demanded. "Showing everyone this creature is harmless," Dren said. "You humans exaggerate everything about your death world. Don't touch him, please." But Dren had already reached for Brock. The honey badger's response was instantaneous and brutal. He twisted with shocking flexibility, his loose skin allowing him to turn even as Dren gripped his body. Sharp teeth sank into the guard's hand. Dren roared in pain and tried to shake Brock off. The honey badger held on, his jaws locked with incredible pressure. When Dren finally pulled free, his hand was bleeding from multiple puncture wounds. "It bit me." Dren stared at his injury in disbelief. "I warned you," Derek said, checking Brock over. The honey badger was completely unharmed and looked ready for round 2. The incident brought Derek to the medical bay, where a droll doctor examined Dren's hand. Greth was there, along with several other senior staff members. "The bite strength is remarkable," the doctor said, studying the wounds. "For such a small creature, the jaw pressure is comparable to predators 3 times its size." "It is also completely unafraid," Dren added, his pride clearly damaged more than his hand. "I tried to intimidate it with my size. The creature just got angrier." Greth turned to Derek. "Perhaps you should explain properly. What makes these honey badgers so dangerous?" Derek pulled up his datapad and displayed educational materials from Earth. Honey badgers evolved in Africa, one of the harshest environments on our planet. They developed several unique traits. First, their skin is remarkably thick and loose. You saw how Brock twisted even when Dren had hold of him. That loose skin makes it nearly impossible to get a killing grip. He showed footage of honey badgers being bitten by larger predators, only to twist around and attack their attackers' faces. Second, they have no fear response. Most animals will retreat when faced with superior size or numbers. Honey badgers attack, always. They've been documented fighting off entire packs of larger predators. The assembled aliens watched video after video. Honey badgers attacking lions, honey badgers raiding beehives while being stung, honey badgers climbing trees to raid bird nests falling 20 feet, and immediately climbing back up. "But why?" Visix asked. "This behavior should result in death." "It does sometimes," Derek admitted. "But more often it results in every other predator learning to leave honey badgers alone. The cost of fighting one isn't worth it. They're also partially immune to various venoms and have incredible recovery abilities. There's documented cases of honey badgers being bitten by cobras, passing out for hours, then waking up and eating the snake." "Impossible," Greth said. "I have the research papers, verified by multiple Earth scientists." The alarm interrupted their discussion. The speakers crackled with an urgent announcement. All personnel were to remain in their current locations. The Krell who had docked for repairs were moving through the station in armed groups. Greth's expression hardened. "They are violating neutral zone protocols." The screens throughout the medical bay activated, showing multiple locations across Harmony 7. The Krell mercenaries had split into teams. They were systematically taking control of critical systems. In the security center, Brask himself stood before the main console. "Attention, inhabitants of Harmony 7. Brask's voice boomed through every speaker. "This station is now under Krell authority. You will comply with our directives. Any resistance will be met with appropriate force. A takeover, Visix whispered. They planned this from the start. Greth moved toward the door, but it had already locked. Throughout the station, automated systems sealed sections, trapping inhabitants where they stood. On the screen, Brask reviewed a data pad. All high-value targets are contained. Security forces are neutralized. The only unaccounted individuals are... He paused, then laughed. The human and his pet. Sector 7, Quarters 14, another Krell appeared on screen. Should we prioritize their capture? Let them wait. A single human and a small animal pose no threat. Focus on securing the research data and preparing the ransom demands. Derek felt his blood run cold, but not from fear. From calculation. He had spent years working with dangerous animals. He understood predator behavior, territorial control, and the importance of aggression versus intelligence. I need to get back to my quarters, Derek said. The doors are locked, Greth replied. Then I need you to override them. For what purpose? We must wait for the proper authorities to resolve this situation. Derek looked at the screen, where Krell mercenaries were herding terrified scientists into the main laboratory. He thought about Brock alone in their quarters, sensing through their bond that something was wrong. Commander, you said the Tormik are apex predators, that you face real threats as a rite of passage. This is correct. Then you need to understand something about Earth. Everything there is an apex predator. Everything is a threat. We don't have the luxury of waiting for danger to pass. We learn to fight back or die. Visix moved closer. What are you planning? The Krell think they've won because they're bigger and armed. They don't know anything about humans. And they definitely don't know anything about honey badgers. Derek pulled up a schematic of the station's maintenance systems on his pad. Brock and I didn't survive on Earth by being the strongest. We survived by being adaptable, persistent, and too stubborn to quit. You cannot fight trained mercenaries, Greth protested. I don't plan to fight them. Not directly. Derek studied the layouts, his mind racing through possibilities. I plan to make them regret underestimating a Death World species. On the screen, Brask issued more orders to his teams. He never once looked concerned about the human and the small animal he had dismissed as harmless. That, Derek thought, was going to be his biggest mistake. Visix managed to access a maintenance terminal, while the Krell focused on the main systems. Her claws moved rapidly across the interface as she whispered to Derek. I can unlock the door to the service corridor, but you will only have 30 seconds before the system logs the breach. The Krell will know someone is moving. Derek nodded. That's enough time. Can you map me a route to my quarters through the maintenance system? Yes, but Derek, even if you reach your companion, what then? You are one human and a small animal against 40 armed mercenaries. 40 mercenaries who have never faced anything from Earth. Derek checked the schematic one more time. Send the route to my data pad. And Visix, when things start happening, make sure everyone stays away from the ventilation system. Why? Because that's where Brock will be. The door clicked open. Derek slipped through into a narrow corridor lined with pipes and conduits. Behind him, the door sealed again. He was alone in the station's infrastructure, racing against time. The maintenance passages were tight and uncomfortable. Derek had to crouch in places, crawl in others. His data pad guided him through the maze. He could hear the Krell moving in the main corridors, their heavy footsteps and harsh voices muffled by the walls. It took 20 minutes to reach his quarters. Derek emerged from a wall panel into his own room, breathing hard. Brock was there, pacing anxiously. The honey badger rushed to Derek immediately, making concerned grunting sounds. I know, buddy. Bad people are here. Derek gathered supplies quickly. A medical kit, water, some protein bars. Most importantly, the special harness he had designed for Brock. It had attachment points for a small camera and tracker. He fitted the harness onto Brock, who tolerated it with his usual impatience. Okay, here's the situation. There are about 40 Krell who think they own this station now. They think we're not a threat. We're going to prove them very wrong. Brock tilted his head, listening. Derek had learned to read his companion's body language over the years. The honey badger understood tone and intent, even if the specific words meant nothing. You remember the commands we practiced? Search, track, distract, and retreat? Brock huffed. He had never been good at the retreat part. Right, you don't do retreat. How about search, track, distract, and go nuts? That got an enthusiastic response. Derek opened the access panel to the maintenance system. Let's introduce the Krell to Earth's wildlife. They moved through the infrastructure together. Derek used his data pad to avoid patrols while heading toward critical systems. The Krell had made a tactical error. They assumed control of the main corridors and important rooms was enough. They ignored the maintenance tunnels that connected everything. Their first target was a Krell patrol in the residential sector. 2 mercenaries armed but relaxed. They were searching rooms looking for anything valuable to steal. Derek found a position where he could watch them through a vent. He gave Brock the signal. The honey badger disappeared into the ductwork with practiced silence. For a few moments, nothing happened. The Krell continued their search, laughing about something. Then Brock's distinctive huffing growl echoed through the vents. The sound was unsettling in the enclosed space, seeming to come from everywhere at once. The Krell stopped laughing. What was that? The sound came again, closer. One Krell aimed his weapon at a vent cover. Something is in the ventilation. Brock hit the vent cover from inside with enough force to knock it loose. The cover clanged to the floor. Before the Krell could react, a black and white blur shot out. Brock went straight for the nearest mercenary's leg, claws and teeth finding gaps in the armor. The Krell screamed. He tried to shake Brock off, but the honey badger's grip was unbreakable. His companion aimed his weapon, but Brock was too close to his partner. Any shot risked hitting the wrong target. Derek used the distraction to act. He dropped from another vent, landing behind the second Krell. The fire extinguisher he had brought from his quarters proved surprisingly effective. One solid hit to the back of the head, and the mercenary dropped. The first Krell finally dislodged Brock, but his leg was badly injured. Blood seeped through torn armor. Before he could recover, Derek hit him with the extinguisher too. Good boy, Brock. Derek grabbed the Krell's weapons, checking them quickly. The technology was unfamiliar but intuitive. Point and shoot. Brock was already sniffing the fallen Krell, making sure they were no longer threats. Satisfied, he looked at Derek expectantly. They took the Krell's communication devices and dragged the unconscious mercenaries into a storage closet. Derek used cable ties from his kit to secure them. The communication device crackled. Team 3, report status. Derek recognized Brask's voice. He kept silent. Team 3, respond immediately. Still silence. Send Team 5 to investigate their last known position, and increase patrols in all sectors. Derek smiled grimly. The Krell were already nervous. Time to make them more so. Over the next 2 hours, Derek and Brock hit 3 more patrols. Each attack followed a similar pattern. Brock caused chaos and injury while Derek provided backup. They disabled 9 Krell total, leaving them tied up in various storage areas. The station's internal communication system carried increasingly frantic reports. Mercenaries described being attacked by a vicious creature that moved through the walls. Some claimed it was small, others insisted it must be larger because nothing that small could fight so effectively. Derek used a hacked terminal to access the station's speakers in one section. He played a documentary about honey badgers, focusing on the most violent clips. Krell guards watched in horror as the small animals on screen attacked everything they encountered. That is what hunts us, one guard said, his voice carrying through the communication network. That creature from the death world? It is only one animal, another replied, but he sounded uncertain. Small animal. Small animal that has injured a dozen of our warriors. Derek listened to them psyching themselves out. Fear was a powerful weapon. The Krell were trained for combat against rational opponents. Brock did not fight rationally. He fought with pure aggressive instinct. Their next target was more ambitious. Derek had located the Krell's communication hub, a small room where they coordinated their teams. Only 2 guards, but taking it would send a message. This one's important, buddy. You ready? Brock's response was to bare his teeth and make his most aggressive huffing sound. They approached through the maintenance system. Derek positioned himself above the communication hub while Brock went through the lower vents. The timing had to be perfect. Derek counted down silently. 3, 2, 1. He kicked open the ceiling panel and dropped down, landing on one guard's back. They crashed to the floor together. The second guard spun, weapon rising. That's when Brock exploded from the wall vent at knee height. The honey badger's attack was precisely targeted. He went for the Achilles tendon, the weak point behind the knee joint. The Krell went down screaming. Derek wrestled his opponent using techniques he had learned from years of handling dangerous animals. Pin the limbs. Control the head. Keep moving so they can't get leverage. The fight lasted less than a minute. Both Krell were unconscious. Derek secured them and then accessed their communication system. Time to send Brask a message. He activated the main channel that connected to all Krell teams. Then he held up his datapad, playing a recording he had prepared. Attention, Krell forces. My name is Derek Huang. I'm a human from Earth. You currently occupy this station and hold my friends hostage. That was a mistake. He paused, letting that sink in. You think you know about death worlds. You think being apex predators on your planet makes you dangerous? Let me educate you. Earth makes your homeworld look safe. We have weather that can kill you in minutes, animals that hunt in packs, insects that carry deadly diseases, plants that are poisonous to touch. We evolved to survive all of that. Another pause. Brock jumped onto the console beside him, staring at the camera Derek had set up. The honey badger looked absolutely feral. This is Brock, he's a honey badger. On Earth, that means he's near the top of the food chain despite his size. Not because he's the biggest or strongest, because he never ever stops fighting. He doesn't understand retreat. He doesn't understand mercy. He just understands that threats must be eliminated. Derek leaned closer to the camera. You hurt my friends. You threatened innocent people. Now Brock and I are going to do what we do best. We're going to survive. And you're going to learn why species from death worlds are not measured by size. He cut the transmission. Throughout the station, Krell mercenaries looked at each other nervously. In the command center, Brask stared at the screen where the human and his small companion had just declared war. For the first time since the takeover began, the Krell leader felt a cold touch of doubt. Brask sent 15 mercenaries to hunt down the human and his animal. They moved through the station in groups of 3, heavily armed and coordinated. The Krell leader watched their progress through security cameras, confident that superior numbers would resolve the problem. Derek watched the same cameras from a hacked terminal. He studied the patrol patterns and made notes. The Krell were predictable. They stuck to main corridors. They avoided the maintenance areas. They assumed their prey would hide. They don't understand us at all, Derek whispered to Brock. The honey badger sat on his shoulder, a position he had claimed as comfortable. On Earth, cornered animals are the most dangerous. The first patrol walked past a junction in the residential sector. They never noticed the ceiling panel that had been loosened. As they passed underneath, Derek released a container of industrial lubricant. The slick fluid splashed across the floor. The lead Krell slipped immediately. He crashed down hard, his weapon skittering away. His 2 companions tried to help but lost their footing on the slippery surface. They went down in a tangle of limbs and armor. That's when Brock dropped from the ceiling. The honey badger landed on the pile of confused mercenaries and went to work. Teeth found exposed joints. Claws raked across faces and necks. The Krell thrashed and shouted, but the lubricant made it impossible to get solid footing. Derek slid down a support beam, avoiding the slick area. He grabbed their weapons and communication devices, then sealed the junction door. The Krell would get free eventually, but by then, Derek and Brock would be long gone. Sector 7 is compromised, a voice crackled over the stolen communicator. The creature. It is more aggressive than any predator I have encountered. It is small, Brask responded. Use your size advantage, and we tried. It does not care about size. It attacks anyway. Derek changed position, moving to the station's environmental control section. Brock followed through the ventilation system, occasionally making loud noises to keep the Krell nervous. The honey badger understood psychological warfare in his own instinctive way. Keep the enemy scared. Never let them feel safe. In the environmental section, Derek accessed the climate controls. He found the settings for the Krell mercenaries' quarters and adjusted them. The Krell were cold-blooded. They needed warmth to function efficiently. Derek lowered their quarters' temperature by 15 degrees. It was a small thing, but combined with everything else, it added to their stress. The next patrol came looking for him. 4 Krell this time, moving carefully. They had learned to check the ceiling and vents. They wore additional padding to protect vulnerable joints. Derek let them find him. He stood in the middle of a corridor, hands visible and empty. The Krell surrounded him quickly, weapons trained. You are caught, human, the lead mercenary said. Where is your animal? Oh, Brock? Derek smiled. He's around. The Krell looked nervous. They scanned the ceiling and walls, expecting an ambush. Nothing happened. Call to it. Make it surrender. Honey badgers don't surrender, Derek said. It's not in their programming. The lead Krell moved closer, reaching for Derek. That's when he noticed Derek was standing on a floor panel that looked slightly different from the others. The mercenary's eyes widened in realization. Derek stomped down hard. The weakened panel gave way. He dropped through into the maintenance level below, landing in a crouch. Above him, the Krell rushed to the hole, looking down. Brock came from their blind side. He had been in the wall panel all along, waiting patiently. Now he launched himself at the nearest Krell, going for the back of the neck where armor was thinnest. The mercenary screamed and spun, but Brock held on like a furry barnacle with teeth. Derek was already running through the lower level. He could hear the chaos above as the Krell tried to deal with an enraged honey badger in close quarters. By the time they neutralized the threat, Derek would be 3 sections away, except Brock never got neutralized. 10 minutes later, the honey badger found Derek using scent and the tracker in his harness. He was covered in minor scrapes but looked incredibly pleased with himself. "Did you win?" Derek asked. Brock made a satisfied huffing sound that Derek interpreted as a yes. The communication channel erupted with angry voices. The 4 Krell had been found tied up in a supply closet, stripped of weapons and equipment. How Brock had managed that alone, Derek did not know. Honey badgers were disturbingly clever when motivated. Brask's voice cut through the chatter. "Enough! The human is making fools of you. He is one individual. Find him and end this. But the animal, shoot it on sight. I do not care if it is small. Kill it." Derek felt a cold anger settle in his chest. Threatening him was one thing. Threatening Brock was different. "New plan, buddy. We stopped playing defensive." They found Visix using the internal communication system. She had managed to avoid capture by hiding in her laboratory. Derek filled her in on his plan. "You want to do what?" Visix hissed. "That is insane. The Krell have everyone trapped in the main laboratory, right? Using them as hostages. Yes, Brask threatens to harm them if rescue ships approach. Then we remove Brask from the equation. Without leadership, the Krell will fall apart. He is in the command center. Heavily guarded, I know. That's why we need a distraction. A really big one." With Visix's help, Derek accessed the station's fire suppression system. He triggered alerts in 6 different sections simultaneously. Alarms blared. Automated systems activated, flooding empty corridors with suppressant foam. The Krell panicked. They split up to respond to the multiple emergencies. Standard military doctrine said you respond to fires immediately. Brask had no choice but to send his guards to investigate. The command center went from 20 guards to 5. Derek and Brock made their approach through the maintenance system. The command center was more secure than other areas, but Derek had studied its layout. There was always a weakness. In this case, it was the cooling system for the main computers. The access panel was barely large enough for Derek to squeeze through. For Brock, it was easy. "Okay, this is it. The big one." Derek checked his stolen weapons. 2 Krell pistols, only partially charged. He had no idea how to reload them. "When we go in, it's going to get crazy fast. Stay close to me if you can." Brock licked his face. It was his way of saying he understood. Derek took a deep breath. On the other side of this panel was the command center. 5 elite Krell guards. Brask himself. All of them trained warriors. On his side was 1 human conservationist and a honey badger. He thought about Earth. About surviving in a world that tried to kill you daily. About the partnership between humans and animals that let both species thrive. About the fact that size and strength mattered less than determination. "For the record," Derek said to Brock, "this is a terrible plan. If we were smart, we would hide and wait for rescue." Brock huffed dismissively. Smart was overrated. "Yeah, that's what I thought." Derek gripped his weapons tighter. "Let's show them why you don't mess with Death World species." He kicked open the panel. Inside the command center, Brask turned at the sound. His eyes widened as a human and a honey badger came through a space that should have been too small for either of them. The battle began before he could even shout a warning. Brock hit the floor running. He went straight for the nearest guard's ankles. The Krell went down hard. Derek followed, weapons firing. His shots were not accurate, but in the enclosed space they forced the other guards to take cover. Chaos erupted. Alarms added to the noise. Guards shouted. Brock made his aggressive huffing growls. Derek kept moving, never staying in one place. A Krell guard tried to shoot Brock. The honey badger dodged with unnatural agility and lunged at the guard's weapon hand. Teeth clamped down. The weapon clattered away. Derek tackled another guard using his weight and momentum. They crashed into a console. Sparks flew. Derek rolled away as a third guard aimed at him. Brock was already there. The honey badger climbed the guard like a tree, claws finding purchase in armor gaps. The Krell screamed and tried to pull him off, but Brock's loose skin made it impossible to get a good grip. Derek grabbed a dropped weapon and fired at the fourth guard. This time his shot connected. The Krell staggered back. That left only Brask. The Krell leader stood at the main console staring at the human and honey badger with something like disbelief. Around them, his elite guards were down or struggling with injuries. Brask was bigger than Derek by at least 2 feet and outweighed him significantly. His natural armor made him resistant to small arms fire. He had killed enemies in dozens of battles across multiple systems. None of that mattered to Brock. The honey badger saw only a threat to his human companion. He charged across the command center floor, claws scrabbling for purchase on the smooth surface. Brask raised his weapon, but Brock was too fast and too low. The shots went over the honey badger's head. Then Brock was on him. The honey badger launched himself at Brask's leg, teeth seeking the vulnerable joints behind the knee. Brask roared and tried to shake him off. Brock held on, his grip unbreakable. Derek used the distraction. He rushed forward and slammed into Brask's midsection with his full weight. The impact knocked the Krell leader backward. They crashed together into the main console. Brask was stronger. He grabbed Derek by the throat and lifted him off the ground. Derek's vision started to darken. He kicked uselessly at the Krell's armored chest. Brock climbed Brask's leg like a mountain, using claws and teeth for handholds. When he reached the arm that held Derek, he bit down hard. Brask's grip loosened. Derek fell, gasping. The Krell leader finally grabbed Brock and threw him across the room. The honey badger hit the wall hard and slid to the floor. For a moment, he lay still. Derek felt pure rage flood through him. He grabbed a piece of broken console and swung it at Brask's head. The metal connected with a satisfying crack. Brask staggered. Across the room, Brock shook himself and stood up. He made an angry chattering sound. Being thrown only made him more determined. The honey badger charged again. This time he went for Brask's face. The Krell tried to block him, but Brock twisted in midair. Claws raked across Brask's eyes. The Krell leader screamed. Derek hit him again with the makeshift weapon. Then again. Brask dropped to one knee. Brock continued his assault. He was a whirlwind of teeth and claws, finding every gap in armor, every vulnerable spot. His stamina seemed limitless. Where other animals would tire, honey badgers just got angrier. Brask made one last desperate attempt. He grabbed Brock with both hands and tried to crush him. The honey badger's loose skin saved him. Brask could not get enough pressure on any vital areas. Meanwhile, Brock twisted and bit at the hands holding him. Derek grabbed a Krell pistol and pressed it against Brask's head. Let him go. Now. Brask released Brock. The honey badger dropped lightly and immediately positioned himself between Derek and any remaining threats. "Your guards are down," Derek said, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "Your takeover failed. And you learned something important about Earth species." Brask glared at him with one undamaged eye. "What lesson?" "Size does not equal strength. Fear is a choice, and honey badgers don't make that choice." Derek accessed the main communication system. "This is Derek Wong to all Krell forces. Your leader is captured. Your guards in the command center are neutralized. You have 2 options. Surrender peacefully or continue fighting." He pulled up security footage showing Brask on his knees, bloodied and defeated. Beside him, Brock stood guard, looking ready for round 2. "If you choose to fight, you will face both of us. Every single one of you. In every corridor. Through every vent. We will not stop. We will not tire. Because that is what Death World species do. We survive. No matter what." Silence filled the communication channel. Derek could imagine the Krell mercenaries looking at each other, weighing their options. Finally, a voice responded. "We surrender. The human and his creature have won." Derek almost collapsed from relief. "Visix, release the hostages. Commander Greth, your station is secure." Throughout Harmony 7, doors unlocked. The captured scientists and staff emerged cautiously. In the main laboratory, Greth stood and straightened his uniform. "Tormach pride is important to us," the commander said quietly to the others. "But today a human showed us that true strength comes in many forms." Derek secured Brask with restraints, then checked on Brock. The honey badger had several scratches and bruises, but nothing serious. He seemed more energized than tired. "You did good, buddy." Real good. Brock made a pleased huffing sound and demanded treats. Over the next few hours, the Krell were processed and confined to secure areas. Medical teams treated injuries on both sides. Derek made sure the Krell who Brock had bitten received proper care, though he felt limited sympathy. Vissix found Derek in his quarters, where he was finally resting. Brock was asleep on the bed, snoring softly. "You should not have survived that," Vissix said. "By all tactical analysis, you and Brock were outmatched." "Tactical analysis does not account for stubbornness," Derek replied. "Earth species have one major advantage. We do not know when to quit. The Krell came from a harsh world too. They considered themselves apex predators. Their world had harsh conditions. Earth has extinction-level conditions. The difference is significant." Derek scratched Brock's ears gently. "Honey badgers evolved where literally everything wanted to kill them. So they developed one simple strategy. Attack first. Attack hard. Never stop attacking. And humans, we learned to work with species like Brock, to combine our intelligence with their fearlessness. That partnership is what makes us dangerous." Vissix was quiet for a moment. "I am writing a report about this incident." "What should I call it?" Derek smiled. "How about why physical advantages mean nothing to Deathworld species?" "That is quite long. Then make it simpler. Call it the Honey Badger incident. Let the galaxy figure out what that means." Later that night, Greth came to Derek's quarters. The Tormach commander looked humbled in a way Derek had never seen. "I owe you an apology," Greth said. "We mocked you and your companion. We assumed our size and strength made us superior." "You did not know," Derek replied. "How could you? You evolved on a stable world. Predators there probably have rules, territory boundaries, threat displays that let both sides avoid unnecessary fights. And on Earth? On Earth, hesitation means death. So some species evolved without the ability to hesitate. Brock does not do threat displays. He does not respect territory boundaries. He just attacks. Every time. It is not courage. It is programming." Greth looked at the sleeping honey badger with new respect. "And you bonded with such a creature?" "Brock trusts me because I raised him. I trust him because he has never let me down. That is the human way. We find the most unlikely allies and make them family." The Tormach commander nodded slowly. "Perhaps that is your species' real strength. Not just surviving death worlds, but learning to love the creatures that share them." After Greth left, Derek lay down next to Brock. The honey badger stirred and moved closer, seeking warmth and contact. For all his ferocity in battle, Brock was still the cub Derek had rescued years ago. "We showed them, didn't we?" Derek whispered. Brock made a sleepy huffing sound that might have been agreement. Outside, the station returned to normal. Scientists went back to their research. Security forces resumed their patrols, but everyone who walked the corridors of Harmony 7 now understood something fundamental. Size could be measured, strength could be tested, but determination, true stubborn determination, could not be calculated or predicted. It could only be experienced. And the Krell mercenaries, sitting in their secure confinement, would carry that experience for the rest of their lives. They had claimed nothing could scare them. They had faced apex predators and won. Then they met a honey badger with a human friend, and learned that on death worlds, victory goes not to the largest or the strongest, but to those who refuse to quit. News traveled fast in the galactic community. Within a week, every species with access to the information networks knew about the honey badger incident on Harmony 7. The story grew with each retelling, but the core facts remained unchanged. One human and his companion animal had defeated 40 armed mercenaries. Derek found himself famous in a way he had never wanted. Representatives from a dozen species requested interviews. Military organizations wanted to study his tactics. Scientists wanted to examine Brock. "I am just a wildlife conservationist," Derek told Vissix as they reviewed yet another interview request. "This is not what I signed up for." "You are more than that now," Vissix replied. "You are proof that Earth species operate by different rules. The galaxy needs to understand this." In the station's conference room, a formal inquiry was taking place. Galactic authorities wanted to understand exactly how the takeover had failed so spectacularly. Derek sat at a long table, Brock on his lap. The honey badger was being surprisingly well behaved, probably because Derek kept feeding him treats. The lead investigator was a tall, insectoid quiven named Rill. "Mr. Huang, your actions saved many lives. However, we must understand the specifics. You had no military training? None, Derek confirmed. I studied animal behavior and conservation. Yet you defeated trained soldiers. I did not defeat them alone. Brock did most of the actual fighting. Rill's compound eyes focused on the honey badger. The creature weighs approximately 12 kilograms. The Krell mercenaries averaged 80 kilograms. This should have been an impossible matchup. On paper, yes, but honey badgers do not understand paper. They understand threats and responses. When Brock identifies something as a threat, he attacks. Size is not part of his calculation. We reviewed the security footage, another investigator said. This one was Drow with dark blue scales. The creature sustained multiple injuries but never retreated. This behavior seems self-destructive. Derek shook his head. It seems that way to species that evolved with strong self-preservation instincts. But on Earth, the most dangerous predators are not always the ones that avoid injury. Sometimes they are the ones that ignore injury until the threat is eliminated. Explain. Think about infection, blood loss, broken bones. These things can kill you later, but a predator attacking you can kill you now. Honey badgers evolved to prioritize the immediate threat over potential future harm. Fight now, heal later. The investigators looked at each other. This concept clearly disturbed them. Greth spoke up from his position along the wall. I have reviewed Earth biology extensively since the incident. Humans have similar traits. Your species continues fighting despite severe injuries. You have documented cases of humans with fatal wounds defeating opponents before succumbing. Adrenaline, Derek said. Our bodies evolved to keep us functional even when critically injured. It is not sustainable, but it can last long enough to survive the immediate crisis. So both you and your companion are capable of fighting beyond normal physical limits? Most Earth species are. When everything on your planet wants to kill you, you develop whatever adaptations let you survive one more day. Brock chose that moment to make a loud yawning sound, showing off his impressive teeth. Several investigators shifted nervously in their seats. The formal inquiry concluded that Derek and Brock had acted in legitimate defense of themselves and others. No charges would be filed. In fact, Derek received an official commendation from the Galactic Science Council. More importantly, the Council issued new guidelines. Species from death worlds required special consideration. Their fauna and flora were to be treated with extreme caution, and their behavioral patterns should never be judged by conventional standards. We essentially wrote new rules because of you, Visix told Derek afterward. The honey badger protocols are already being taught in xenobiology courses. Derek laughed. Brock would be so proud if he understood, but the real changes were more personal. The Tormach security forces requested Derek's help redesigning their training programs. They wanted to understand death world thinking. We trained to be strong, Greth explained during one session. We assumed strength was enough, but you and Brock taught us that determination beats strength. Not always, Derek cautioned. Brock's tactics work because he is small and fast. He exploits his enemy's assumptions. A larger predator using the same tactics would fail. So the lesson is not to fight like honey badgers. The lesson is to understand your own advantages and use them. Honey badgers use their size and fearlessness. Humans use tools and intelligence. You Tormach have strength and coordination. Fight your way, not ours. The training sessions became popular. Soon other species on the station were attending. Derek found himself teaching xenobiology from a practical perspective. How to read predator body language. How to identify genuine threats versus displays. How death world instincts differed from normal world responses. Brock helped with demonstrations. He showed how honey badgers moved, how they attacked, how they defended. The students watched with a mixture of fascination and fear. One young Droll asked, "Is he not tired of attacking practice dummies?" "He thinks they are threats," Derek replied. To Brock, everything new is potentially dangerous until proven otherwise. It is exhausting for us, but for him, it is just how he experiences the world. Several weeks after the incident, Derek received a visitor in his quarters. Brask, the former Krell mercenary leader, stood at his door. The Krell's injuries had healed, but he moved with more caution than before. "I am being transferred to a detention facility tomorrow," Brask said. "I wanted to speak with you before I left." Derek invited him in. Brock immediately positioned himself between Derek and the visitor, watching intently. "I underestimated you," Brask continued. "This was my mistake. I assumed small meant weak. I assumed lack of military training meant helpless. Many people make that assumption. My species comes from a harsh world too. We thought this made us strong. But your Earth makes our homeworld look gentle. Brask stared at Brock. That creature should not exist. Its survival strategy is mathematically unsound. And yet honey badgers thrive on Earth. Sometimes mathematics fails to capture reality. I have been thinking about this. Your species partners with creatures that should be your enemies. This is the real lesson, yes? Not the fighting or the tactics. The partnership itself, Derek nodded. Humans did not conquer Earth alone. We allied with wolves and made dogs. We domesticated horses for transportation. We partnered with cats to control pests. We learned that cooperation beats competition. And this creature? Brask gestured at Brock. He is not domesticated. No. Brock is wild. But he trusts me, and I trust him. That is enough. Brask was quiet for a moment. When I am released many years from now, I will carry this lesson. The galaxy should fear Earth not because of human weapons or strength. They should fear Earth because humans bring their entire planet with them. After Brask left, Derek sat with Brock and considered those words. The honey badger had fallen asleep on his lap, looking completely harmless. You know what's funny? Derek said to Visix over their communication link. Everyone focuses on how dangerous Brock is. But they miss the bigger picture. What picture? Brock is one of Earth's smaller predators. We have bears that weigh 400 kilograms. We have big cats that hunt in coordinated packs. We have whales in our oceans that are larger than most spacecraft. And humans learn to live alongside all of them. Visix was silent. Then she said, You are saying that if Brock caused this much chaos, imagine what larger Earth species could do. I am saying that Earth taught humans to coexist with danger. We grew up surrounded by things that could kill us. So we learned adaptation, cooperation, and stubbornness. Derek stroked Brock's fur gently. Every human who comes to the stars brings those lessons. And many of us bring companions who share them. The implications hung in the air. Across the galaxy, military strategists began reassessing humanity's potential. Scientists started serious studies of Earth's biodiversity. Diplomats reconsidered their assumptions about Death World species. And in a small quarters on Harmony 7, a man and a honey badger slept peacefully. They had faced overwhelming odds and survived. They had protected those who could not protect themselves. They had taught the galaxy a lesson about judging by appearances. Tomorrow, Derek would continue his research. He would study alien ecosystems and share his knowledge. Brock would explore, intimidate the station's residents with his presence, and generally do honey badger things. But tonight they rested. Two survivors from Earth, comfortable in a universe that was only beginning to understand what their planet had created. The galaxy had claimed nothing could scare them. Then they met a honey badger with a human friend. Now they knew better. They knew that Death World species measured strength not in size or weapons, but in determination. They knew that partnerships between species could create something greater than either alone. They knew that underestimating based on appearance was the fastest path to defeat. Most importantly, they knew that when humans said their homeworld was harsh, they were not exaggerating. They were warning. And warnings, as 40 Krell mercenaries could attest, should be heeded. Brock huffed softly in his sleep, perhaps dreaming of battles won and threats defeated. Derek smiled and closed his eyes. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. But that was fine. They were from Earth. Challenges were what they did best.